In this video, we're going to have a look at how to solve inequalities, or inequations as they're sometimes known. Now, at the level you're working at, the inequalities you will be given will involve one variable. And basically what an inequality is that it tells you what something is in relation to something else. And you will find one of these four symbols at the heart of your inequality. You should know what each of these actually means. Now, to solve an inequality, all that wants you to do is to find out what the subject, the variable, is in relation to everything else in its simplest form. And what you want to do is treat it like an equation. So make sure that you balance everything. What you do to one side, do it to the other. Get letters to one side, numbers to the other. So treat it like an equation. Use all the rules that you would use to solve an equation when solving an inequality. But there are a couple of other things that you need to know when you're solving inequalities. Two extra rules, if you like. So the first rule, if we can call it, change the sides, flip the symbol. So if you swap the terms so that the right-hand terms appear on the left-hand side and the left-hand terms appear on the right-hand side, your inequality symbol has to flip. It has to be pointing in the other direction. And also, if you change the signs, so if every negative becomes a positive and every positive becomes a negative, then you also have to flip the symbol. And your goal, your destination is to end up with a single positive letter on the left-hand side. That is where you want to arrive at. Now, different people will take a different route to get there, but as long as you arrive at the correct destination and follow the rules, your answers will be correct. And it doesn't matter what route you take or how many steps you might take to get there. Okay, so let's have a look at a few examples. We'll start off with a few simple ones, and we will keep the rules up at the top just to remind yourselves of what you need to do. Okay, so firstly, I've got to solve this first one. Now, I want a positive term on the left. I want a single positive letter on the left-hand side. So what I'll do is I'm going to change the signs. So this negative 7m becomes positive 7m, the 14 becomes negative 14. And because I've done that, because I've used rule 2, I have to flip the symbol, so it's pointing in the other direction. Now to get m on its own, which is what I want, that's my goal, I need to divide both sides by 7. So I end up with a final solution of m is greater than or equal to negative 2. And that's me finished. Now for this one, the first thing I'm going to do is, because I want my letters on the left, remember that's what you want, I'm going to swap the sides. I'm going to change the sides. So my 5n is now on the left, my negative 10 is now on the right. So because I've made use of rule 1, I then flip the symbol, so it's pointing in the other direction. And to get n on its own, to get my single positive letter on the left, I divide both sides by 5. Whatever you do to one side, do the same to the other. So you end up with n is greater than negative 2. Okay? And for this one, again, I'm going to swap the sides first. So I'll change the sides. So the negative 3k goes on the left, the 15 goes on the right. I flip the symbol. Now, I want positive letter on the left, so I'm going to change the signs. So the 3k goes from being negative to positive, the 15 goes from being positive to negative, and I flip the symbol again. Now, you will sometimes find in a question that your symbol flips a couple of times. And then to find k on its own, I divide both sides by 3, so I end up with k is less than or equal to negative 5. Okay, so that's as making use of each of the rules and ending up with a single positive letter on the left-hand side. Okay, let's look at these ones. Now, you want to get letters to one side, numbers to the other. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to take 2 away from both sides. Make sure that you don't end up changing your inequality symbol into an equal sign. It has to remain as an inequality symbol. So we've got 5x on the left-hand side because I have 2's cancel out. Negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. To get a single positive letter on the left, I need to divide both sides by 5. So we end up with x is less than or equal to negative 1. Okay? Now for this one, what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to swap the sides. So we'll change the sides. So we'll end up with z plus 9 on the left and 3 on the right. And because I've changed the sides, I'm going to flip the symbol. And now to get z on its own, I have to take 9 away from both sides. If they cancel, we end up with z is less than or equal to -6. And that's you finished. And for this one, well, let's get letters on the left on one side, numbers on the other first of all. So what we'll do is we'll take away the 8 from both sides. So they cancel out. The left-hand side is now just -3m. The right-hand side is 2 minus 8, which is -6. Now, let's change the signs. So the negatives become positive. So both sides are now positive. My symbol flips to point in the other direction, and I divide both sides by 3. So I end up with m is greater than 2. Okay? Now let's have a look at these 4. Okay? So you want letters on one side, numbers on the other. So it's always best to take or to make the letter side, whichever side has more or the larger of the letter terms. So in this case 8y is bigger than 3y, so we will take our letters to the left hand side. So we will remove 3y from both sides. So they cancel out. The left hand side now becomes 5y minus 2, and that is greater than -17. Okay. Now, if I want letters on one side, numbers on the other, I need to add 2 to both sides, so that the left-hand side has only 5y. So that gives us 5y is greater than -15. So if I divide both sides by 5 now, I end up with y being greater than -3. Okay? Y is greater than -3. Now for this one, 2n is larger than -6n. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the right-hand side the side where I'm going to collect all the letters. So what I'll do is I'll add 6n to both sides. That means that they cancel out. So my left-hand side is just 13. And that's less than or equal to 8n plus 9. Now, if I want letters on their own on the right-hand side, I need to take away 9 from both sides. So that they cancel out, I end up with 13 minus 9, which is 4, and 8n on the right-hand side. Now you want a single positive letter on the left, so I want my letters on the left. So I change the sides, so the 8n is now on the left, the 4 is on the right. My symbol flips round. I divide everything by 8, so that n is greater than or equal to 4/8, which is 1/2. Okay? Let's look at these two. Now, whenever you have brackets appearing in an equation or an inequality, what you have to do first of all is multiply them out. So we'll do that first of all, and we'll say that's going to be 5k minus 10 minus 1 is less than -16. Okay, simplify the left-hand side, it becomes 5k minus 11 is less than -16. Adding 11 to both sides, they cancel. We end up with 5k is less than -5. And dividing both sides by 5 gives me that k is less than -1. Finished. Okay? And for this one, multiplying out the brackets, I get 15 minus 6x plus x is greater than 3 minus 2x. So this becomes 15 minus 5x is greater than 3 minus 2x. Now, what I want to do is collect my letters where the larger of the two x terms is. So -2x is larger than -5x. And the reason I'm doing that is just so that I avoid having to work with negatives unnecessarily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 5x to both sides. So they cancel. I end up with 15 is greater than 3 plus 3x. Okay, now what I'll do maybe is I'll take away 3 from both sides, and that will give me letters on one side, numbers on the other. They cancel. I end up with 12 is greater than 3x, and if I change the sides, I have to flip the symbol round, divide both sides by 3, I end up with x is less than 4. And that's my final solution. Okay, so to solve an inequality, all you want to do is rearrange it so that you have a single positive letter on the left-hand side. So let's have a look at a few questions for you to try yourselves. Okay, so see if you can have a bash at these and then check back and see if your answers were correct. So pause the video and come back and see if your answers are correct. So let's have a look at the first one. So I want my letters on the left, numbers on the right. So what I'll do is I'll change sides. And that means I'm going to have to flip my symbol. So my symbol is now less than as opposed to greater than. Now I want positive letters on the left, so I need to change the signs. So my two negative terms now are positive terms. So because I have changed the signs, I have to flip the symbol again. And then dividing both sides by 5 gives me that x is greater than 5. Okay? Now for this one, let's take 13 away from both sides. Now you may well have done the steps in a different order to me. Remember, it doesn't matter in what order you do the steps, as long as you follow the rules, we will both arrive at the same destination, the same correct final answer. So they cancel out. We end up with negative 6y is less than 1 minus 13 is negative 12. And then again, my signs are wrong, they're not what I want. I want a positive letter on the left-hand side. So I change the signs. So the negative becomes positive. So does the right-hand side. I flip my symbol. I divide both sides by 6. So y is greater than 2. Okay? And as for these two, what I'm going to do is I will try and get letters to one side, numbers to the other. So what I'll do is I'll take 2x away from both sides. They cancel. I end up with 9 is greater than or equal to 2x plus 3. Now, I want my letters on the left-hand side. So what I'll do at this point is I will swap the sides. Okay? So because I've swapped the sides, I have to flip the symbol. I will then take 3 away from both sides. And that leaves me with 2x is less than or equal to 6. And then dividing both sides by 2 gives me that x is less than or equal to 3. Okay? Now for this one, there is a bracket to multiply out, so we will deal with that first of all. So it becomes 12 plus 6 minus 9x. Okay, multiplying everything in here by 3. And that's less than or equal to 4 minus 5x. Tidying up the left-hand side, what do I end up with? I end up with 18 minus 9x. And that is less than or equal to 4 minus 5x. Now, this is the larger of my two x terms. So what I'll do is I will take all my x's over to the right-hand side. So I'll add 9x to both sides. So they cancel. And that means that I end up with 18 on the left-hand side on its own. And that's less than or equal to 4. And then 9x minus 5x gives me positive 4x. Now what I want to do is I can get my letters to the left. So what we'll do is we'll swap sides and we'll say 4 plus 4x is greater than or equal to 18. So we flip the symbol round because we've swapped the sides and changed the sides. And then I want 4x on its own, so we take away the 4, so that we end up with letters on one side, numbers on the other. And that leaves you with 4x is greater than or equal to 14. So dividing both sides by 4, okay, we end up with x is greater than 14 over 4. And we can say x is greater than or equal to 7 over 2, or 3.5 if you like, if you want to leave it as a decimal. So that's how you solve inequalities. Okay, treat them like equations, and remember the two rules. If you change the sides you swap them around, then you have to flip the symbol. If you change the signs, your negatives into positives and positives into negatives, you also have to flip the symbol. And you do all of that so you end up with a single positive letter on the left-hand side as your subject. So I hope that video was helpful, and I hope you're now able to solve inequalities.